Anybody else getting sick or tired of this yet? Not the show. I mean, like the whole thing going on. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Differently Wired Show, episode 61, The Illusion of Understanding. We'll get into the main topic and why we chose that in a second. Well, I mean, if you watched last week's show, you probably know. But we'll go over that momentarily. First of all, just want to remind you guys, in case you didn't know, my name is Max Danger Derrat. I'm your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin. And joining me as always, sitting to my immediate left, right, center, and behind, if the binaural audio of my headphones is anything to go by, he is PhD. Excuse me as my head tacos. He is John Tucker. John, how are you this lovely Wednesday evening?
I am lovely.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. See, the great thing, I guess, I don't know. What was I about to say? Sorry, guys. I'm very, very, I don't know if you could tell by the way that I sound right now. I'm just very, very exhausted. You know what? I'll just explain why. So, I think I mentioned this on last week's show. We'll get into the main topic and all the usual stuff in a second, but just indulge me momentarily. I think I mentioned this on last week's show, but I didn't go into much detail. I mentioned, I think, that I had a bit of a health scare last week. I actually had to go to the hospital. Damn it, did I just... Sorry. I think I just tore the clip off of my pencil. Anyways, ADHD. I had a bit of a health scare last week where I had to go to the hospital. And the main reason why is because I was having breathing problems. And naturally, with everything going on, and the fact that my father would be particularly susceptible to death with everything in regards to, I don't want to say the name of it because I don't want to get demonetized, but you know what I'm talking about. I wanted to be safe and I went to the hospital, even though, my father thought, hey, maybe it's anxiety that's causing you these breathing problems. And it's like, well, no, I don't think so because I don't feel particularly anxious. But I went to the hospital. Turns out I was 100% okay. My oxygen levels were at 100%. And I think a day or two after I went to the hospital, I came back and my breathing was okay. But it was particularly annoying because, like I said, I wasn't feeling anxious, but I was having troubles breathing. I was having troubles getting to the top of a breath. Well, naturally, 4 or 5 days of, seeming okay passed. And then yesterday I started having breathing problems again, and those breathing problems continue to today. So, and once again, I'm not feeling particularly anxious, right? It's just for whatever reason, these breathing problems don't like to go away for multiple days, and it's making me extremely paranoid and extremely tired and fed up because it's like, oh, do I have it? Do I not have it? And it's taking its toll on me. So I'm saying all this just so you guys know, because in case I need to drop out at any time during the show, or if I don't know if I'm going to be feeling up to doing the after show tonight. The plan is to go through with it, but I'm just letting you guys know in case I need to go. Please be understanding. So, with all that out of the way, I'm going to skip over the John wants to plug something in a second, but I'm just letting guys know I'm going to skip over the usual house cleaning that we do. But before we actually get into the main topic, John just wanted to plug something. I'm just going to bring up my display here so you can see my you can see my screen right here. There's my cursor. John, what is it you wanted to plug?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, one of the differently wired folk were talking about, they wish they could talk to me. And I'm not on the Discord server and so on and so forth. So I said, well, this is an interesting time, especially for people that don't have a lot of cash floating around. So I have an opening I made on Monday afternoons so that people can go to my website. And it says coping with COVID, almost coping. The C is, kind of creeping around the corner. Coping with COVID, and you can start a chat, and you can just select one of those times, for a 20-minute chat, and it's not sales, and it's not. It doesn't connect to anything except if you want to talk. So differently wired folks would have the first crack at that schedule if they're interested in just saying hello to me on Zoom. Now, something I should point out is that you don't have to identify yourself. You can give a false, a pseudonymous email. You can be Max Derrat, right, on your email. When you zoom in on this little chat, you can leave the video off. You don't have to identify yourself. There's no tracking of anything. You can be as anonymous as you choose to be. So this will be on for a couple of months or for the duration, whatever.
Awesome. And you just literally put this up right before we started, right? So.
Oh, yesterday morning, I think it got up.
Oh, okay. Why did it? Okay. Anyways, yeah. You. So as you guys can see on screen right now, this is every Monday. So today is the 15th, right? So this John's first crack at this new experiment will be starting this coming Monday at April the 20th. Sorry, excuse me, guys. I swear to God, it's not a cough. It's just this happens every time I eat a lot for dinner, which I did. Yeah, this Monday. You can see all the ranges of times here. And they last for 20 minutes each. And yeah, there are some here that are available right now. If you guys want to talk to John at any of those times, make sure to sign up right now. And his website, as you can see right here, I'm hovering over with my cursor. That is johntuckerphd.com. There's also a link to his website in the description box below, in case, for whatever reason you can't see this. Okay. So, with that out of the way, let's get, well, hold on. Actually, I did say I was going to skip over the other house cleaning things, which I am going to do. So, the illusion of understanding. That's the main topic for today. It was teased at the end of last week's show, and I didn't really actually know what you meant by this, John. You actually sent me a couple of photos of pages from a book that sort of inspired why you wanted to choose this particular topic, but even still, I didn't really understand. But I actually called you this morning just to get some clarification. And you sort of said that it's something along the lines of trying to offer decent explanations in place of actual ones before you can fully understand something. Do I got that right?
I don't know. I don't quite understand. What did you just say?
Did you not understand anything I just said?
Some of it, but it doesn't link up in my head.
Oh, it's just, well, I called you this morning. I asked you what the illusion of understanding meant. And you said something about it using abstract or convenient concepts to help ourselves understand something that is sort of outside our scope of knowledge. So, for example, like if you're differently wired and you have autism, for example, somebody else in your immediate circle of friends or family might look at you and say, "Oh, you don't have autism, you have so and so, or you're just making stuff up." That was
Yeah, that's it's kind of like that.
okay.
It's actually almost like how music digitized takes out some of the edges and some of the real audio files, like uh, vinyl, because they get the whole spectrum of noise. What this understanding does is like it digitizes thinking, clip, 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 make it more convenient, make it more understandable, make it your own. But I'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute in relation to the book and why I was inspired to bring it up.
Okay. Well, please do.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me tell you about the book and the author. The book that I was reading is called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's a bestseller. He's a
John,
Nobel Prize winner.
sorry, John, can you just repeat that again? Your voice went robotic there.
Oh, okay. The book is called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And he talks about two systems in the way we think. One is fast, intuitive, and emotional. He calls that system one. You get an idea, you like the idea, it feels good, then everything is in terms of intuition. You may not be using logic to evaluate that. And that can be a problem. Can be good, but it can be a problem. System two is slower, logical, and rational. So that's your thoughtful, rational planning side of your brain, part of your brain. Okay, so his book is all about distinguishing and understanding that. The book itself is worth a Nobel Prize. Deep enough. So here I am for the last month or so, reading up to page 195, not understanding a word. Well, maybe a word here and there. And then finally, at around page 200, bing, everything started to fit together when I hit a chapter called The Illusion of Understanding. It's not my words, it's Daniel Kahneman's. So it's a great book. He talks about, on page 82 of this book, he has a section entitled Exaggerated Emotional Coherence, the Halo Effect. So if you like the president's politics, you probably like his voice and his appearance as well. The tendency to like or dislike anything about a person, including things you have not observed, is known as the halo effect. This term has been used in psychology for a century, but it has not come into wide use in everyday language. This is a pity because the halo effect is a good name for a common bias that plays a large role in shaping our view of people and situations. So you meet a woman at a party, you like her. Her name comes up as someone who might be able to contribute to a charity. What do you know about her generosity? Nothing, because you like her. You think she's probably going to be generous. Actually, she might not be generous. But the halo effect says, oh, I like her. She must have nice tasting clothes. She must have nice family. That's the halo effect. And it is an exaggerated emotional coherence. So you like things to be orderly. So you like things to follow a certain pattern. You want to be around your own tribe. You like to be comfortable with your friends. If you all drink beer and watch, hockey, then you assume that you're good and you like each other in all kinds of ways. And so it's like this tribey, teamy kind of, I don't know, groupthink that goes on.
Hmm.
Okay, groupthink, borrowing that from George Orwell, or is it Winston?
No, George Orwell.
George Orwell, yeah. Well, okay, groupthink is where there's a legislated or a presumed way to think, and it's kind of comfortable because when we're doing it, we're going along with the crowd. We're not standing out. We're not being different. So we're kind of comfortable hiding away in the pack. But we may not be thinking for ourselves with groupthink.
Hmm.
But this generates an illusion of understanding. On page, where am I? 199. He says narrative fallacies arise inevitably from our continuous attempt to make sense of the world.
Yes.
The explanatory story. Okay, go ahead.
No, I
Interrupt.
was about to say that's where I was sort of getting at with, putting forward fictions in order to maybe help understand our, uh, like how
Yes.
the world works.
Yeah. What you're doing is you're joining up bits of things that you think you know. You're kind of interpolating. Oh, well, if this was there and that is over there, well, the stuff in the middle is like this. So it's like A and C, so it must be B. And then that becomes your truth. It's wrong, you know. You I think I mentioned this morning an example or somebody. You see some guy and he's kicking a little dog, and you're really offended. He's kicking this dog, so you phone the SPCA and you're upset and you're screaming at him. It turns out it's a rug shaped like a dog, and you screwed up because you joined ideas in your head and you had this illusion that you understood that he was abusing a beast when he was cleaning a rug. So it creates problems when we do this presumptive thinking. The explanatory stories that people find compelling are simple, concrete rather than assign a larger role to talent, stupidity, and intention than to luck, and focus on a few striking events that happened rather than on the countless events that failed to happen. Any recent salient event is a candidate to become the kernel of a casual narrative. Later in this chapter, he goes on to talk about the chaps who put Google together. When it was worth almost $1 million, they tried to sell it.
Hmm.
They tried to get rid of it. They said, oh, we made a profit. We can, buy a new car and a house or something. But the guy they were selling it to Said, nah, a million is too much for Google. I'm not paying $1 million. Waste. Oh, okay. Okay. Was that an intelligent decision they made? No, it was blind bloody luck. The guy didn't want to buy Google
Yeah.
for a million. It was too much money. So isn't that interesting? So he points out things that fail to happen can be very powerful. Like they failed to get rid of their Google product. So anyway, I've been babbling on, and I could babble on and on and on. There's more stuff I've outlined, but Max, maybe you'd like to jump in.
Well, in regards to the halo effects, it's something that's sort of endemic to human nature. When it comes to like that example that you were citing about projecting all these positive qualities onto somebody of the opposite sex, that's actually something that we all do. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because one thing that I've been studying a lot on my channel, as a lot of you already know, is a guy named Carl Jung. And he actually had a theory that the reason why people do this is because there are contrasexual qualities within the human psyche, and we tend to project only the good ones onto people, because projecting the bad ones onto other people tends it God, sorry guys. I completely forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry. It's just
You were talking about Carl Jung projecting qualities.
yeah, it's just my breathing. It's just I'm trying to focus on breathing and thinking at the same time. It's a real pain in the ass. Yeah. Project. You know what? Let's just. Christ.
Take your time. Would you like me to babble on for a while you're getting your breath together?
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay, no problem. Kahneman, brilliant man, says good stories provide a simple and coherent account of people's actions and intentions. You are always ready to interpret behavior as a manifestation of general propensities and personality traits, causes that you can readily match to effect. But when a storekeeper goes out and he gives a little kid an apple, and you say to yourself, what a kind man. Here's a shopkeeper, and he took part of his profit and he gave it to that little kid. He must be really nice to his family. No, actually, he's not. He abuses his family terribly. He just happened to like that little kid, and he's grooming him for some bad stuff later. But you thought he was a nice man. He looked nice. So you assumed he was nice about everything, and he didn't have bad plans. So that's a really extreme example of a halo effect, but we can go terribly wrong by allowing it to happen. And it happens to really smart people an awful lot of the time. Okay. There is, let me see. Oh, yeah. When we see somebody bad, we think they're all bad, and so everything they do is bad. And so a statement like this: Hitler loved dogs and little children, is shocking, no matter how many times you hear it, because any trace of kindness in someone so evil violates the expectations set up by the halo effect. Inconsistencies reduce the ease of our thoughts and the clarity of our feeling. It's hard to reconcile the notion that Hitler loved dogs and little children with the kind of evil that he did, which,
Yeah.
is outstanding. But the halo effect made you say, no, he couldn't have anything about him that was okay.
Right. It's the inability to recognize the opposite qualities, qualities is opposite traits in somebody, regardless if they're good or bad. That's something that's okay. Now I'm getting back to what I was originally wanting to say, is endemic to human beings. And actually, like I'll bring Jung into this in a second. It's because trying to reconcile the possibility that good people can have bad traits about them is completely, it's not something that certain people's brains can compute, especially those that are particularly sensitive. I got a good example. One thing that made me particularly upset uh, once when I was scrolling through Twitter, um, you guys, John. I know you're familiar with a guy named Jordan Peterson, and I'm sure
I am
everybody else
indeed. Yeah.
here is as well. What I'm about to say, you don't have to be a fan of Jordan Peterson to accept what I'm about to say. Um, what I think people, well, I don't know, like maybe I should just say this first. What I found is that somebody on Twitter was saying that uh, Jordan Peterson was a Nazi apologist, and they clipped a part of a podcast that he was a part of. It was the H3H3 podcast. I know some of you are familiar with that. And during that podcast, he was trying what Jordan Peterson was trying to do was sort of explain why Hitler rose to power, and moreover, why people elected him to power. Even though, like, there were warning signs that, hey, he was this particular guy and that he was a racist, and that, if you read Mein Kampf, which came out before you even, I think, gotten mostly into politics, you could see what he intended to do, but why people elected him. And the reasoning that he gave was that, well, Germany just lost World War One. They were in dire economic straits. There were people that would have to bring wheelbarrows of marks to grocery stores in order just to buy one loaf of bread. And here was this guy that was not only promising a return to order, but also a promise that they would gain sufficient revenge for these really punitive measures imposed on them by the Allied forces. Well, not the Allied forces, but the people that we fought with during World War One. Hitler promised retaliatory measures against people like the U.S., Canada, other European countries, etc. And when he did this, there was somebody on Twitter that clipped that and said, "Oh, here's Jordan Peterson engaging in apologia for the Nazis, um, and therefore anybody that listens to Jordan Peterson is a Nazi." Now, you don't have to like Jordan Peterson to realize that he's not a Nazi. You don't have to agree with his self-help or any of his political viewpoints to realize that he's not a Nazi, right? But the fact of the matter is, that clip that was put on Twitter, um, it got like 12,000 likes. So there's 12,000 people out there, at least, there's obviously hundreds of thousands, if not millions more, that think that he's a Nazi, because unless you're just purely painting Hitler as like this otherworldly demon, which he was in some ways, but the fact of the matter is he was also human, and we as well are human, and we do have the possibility on a psychological level to get to these really dark places where we would become and do things that we couldn't even imagine. That's what he was trying to say. But the fact of the matter is, there are some people out there that can't compute that, and that sort of goes back to the halo effect. Except in regards to Hitler, it's sort of like the opposite of a halo effect. It's sort of like a devil horn effect, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word.
Yeah. That's a really, really good example of how people can be vilified. But those 12,000 likes, 11,097 of them were people who were going to like something nasty about Jordan anyway because of the halo effect. Didn't matter what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody had said something that, like, there's a certain group of people that you have seen Peterson have to rail against, who sort of banded against him for his role in pronouns and language. He was very clear, wasn't prejudiced, wasn't racist, chauvinist, but his language they found offensive because he didn't go along with the crowd, the tribe's halo effect that they wanted to get going. He kind of spoke against it. He spoke clearly against it, and so they vilified him, and that made all of them stand and chant and scream
Yeah.
in a kind of a mindless mob rule kind of way. It reminds me of, I don't know. I know a great example of this, a horrible version of the halo effect, is that, say there's a lot of sports fans in a stadium, and most of the fans, the home team is kind of not doing very well, and the fans are kind of upset, like. And on the other team, the opposing team, there's this guy who's leading the charge. He's scoring all the goals. He's getting, he's bringing bad news to the home team. So he gets hurt somehow or another. He's tackled or hit, and then he's carried off the ice. What do the fans do? That this guy, who is a good player, is hurt and injured and carried off the ice. Do the fans go, "Oh, too bad"? No, they cheer.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
happy,
Yeah.
right? So that is a sick example of that tendency that you were talking about earlier, that you would rather this guy break his leg or be injured permanently than lose the game. Right? It's insane. I mean, it's laughably insane. But that's what happens when you get caught up in system one thinking.
Yeah, but that's what millions of sports fans do, unfortunately. And well, I suppose when it comes to any realm of human endeavor where you can gain your point, be it like in sports or politics or art, there's some people that wish that, but those are the people that sort of don't have their priorities in order and don't
Well,
realize.
unfortunately, there's a piece of that in all of us.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I was trying to get at. It's just
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
yeah.
people that are most willing to engage in that halo effect of the good, like the halo effect for the good people and the devil effect for the bad people, are the people that are most likely to engage in that type of behavior, where like, oh, they project all these terrible things onto other people, and then because those are terrible people, it sort of justifies acting terribly towards those terrible people, those supposed terrible people.
And it's a kind of a spoiler alert here.
Oh,
Differently wired folk have a very big tendency to need community. So it would be very easy for a differently wired person who was well treated with empathy and kindness to find that person who was treating them with empathy and kindness good,
yeah,
or someone who disagreed with them bad. So we will tend in the differently wired world to want the safety of black and white. We will want the safety of understanding, but it might be an illusion. So
yeah,
we always have to be willing to step back and use what Kahneman calls systems. Let me look at this feeling I have. Wait, now, where is this feeling coming from? We've talked about this in the context of anxiety. Anxiety can be your friend. We did a show once called Cozying Up to Anxiety, because anxiety is telling you something. You don't have to retreat to safety. You can visit the world of logic if you're capable of doing. Okay, what's going on here? Why am I feeling upset about this? What's bothering me? Where's this coming from? Okay, step back, think, and it kind of use a little bit of cognition to understand what's happening. Why is this pain in my stomach? Why do the back of my legs hurt? What is this going? Oh, I see. What is chemical stuff going on? That's adrenaline. That's fight or flight response is kicking in. I see. My body is sympathetic with this state of worry. Oh, okay. Well, I'll stretch my leg. I'll do something. You can kind of ameliorate that effect that way. So if you're differently wired, you must be on guard against the group thinking, the group think, the illusion of agreement when you find someone who is sounding okay. They may actually not be okay, or they may not sound okay, but they may be okay. In fact, there's a part of tonight's mailbag question has a very good question about that if we get to it.
oh, we'll
But
get
yeah,
to it.
I'm blabbing on so much. Okay. Um, okay, I should stop for a moment, Max. Because you'd like to jump
um
in and
yeah, actually, there was one thing I wanted to say, but I just I literally had it, and then 10 seconds ago it just dropped from my mind. um Oh yeah, the conformity thing. Okay, so in regards to people that are differently wired, especially like people that are on the autism spectrum, what I found is that they're least likely to be conformist, because the fact of the matter is they're sort of born predisposed to not, unfortunately, fit into a lot of neurotypical boxes. right? And
Mhm.
therefore they have to find ways to individuate and be self-sufficient in order to, it's sort of a survival technique. I found that for myself. I found generally that when it comes to like making friends with anybody or joining any groups, while I'll always maintain an air of decency, I'm always sort of suspicious as to like that person's true character, their true motives. uh and I found, especially with the people that I've talked to in the comment sections or in the Discord server, that they tend to adopt that perspective as well. Is that sort of what you're saying as well in
Mm.
regards? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, I just before we move on, I just wanted to address the super chats that were sent in. The first one comes to us from Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, who's a very generous donator to the show. Thank you so much, Athena. They say, I'd argue that there is the opposite effect as well. For example, projecting the bad stuff in ourselves to others. So that's the word for it, the horn effect. Is that the actual word for it, Athena? I don't know. I'll scroll down in the comments and see if you respond to it. Um, Acampando con Frikis, another regular viewer and contributor to the show, sends in 11 euros and 11 cents. Thank you very much. I'm not sure what, I guess 1111 lucky. I think that's what it is. He says, "Hope you get good, Max. You're a great human being. Thanks for everything you do." Oh, thanks, dude. I hope this goes away. It's so annoying. Like, I don't understand. I don't feel anxious about anything except for the fact that this thing doesn't seem to be going away. Uh, it's like I'm perfectly relaxed. I just had a nice dinner, and for whatever reason, there's this tightness in my chest. Like, guys, I seriously, I went last week to get tested, and to the people that are saying get tested, I don't think I need to, unless like the symptoms go beyond shortness of breath, which they're not right now. I don't see what the purpose is.
Is there
um
a lot of carbohydrate in your supper?
I had soft tacos for dinner tonight. So what's that? It's tortilla shells, um ground beef, marble cheese, and sour cream. Yeah. I don't know. um 2 minutes says, "Are people literally defending Hitler on here?" No, absolutely not. Just to cover my own ass, and you can quote me on this, Hitler is one of the top 5 worst people that probably ever lived. So there you go. Don't worry. Don't worry. um, John, did you have anything else to say in regards to that? Any of that?
No, that's good.
Okay.
I mean, I can certainly continue to talk about the illusion of understanding, unless you want to flip over to the mailbag or
Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll just do the mailbag, and I think we'll cut the show about 10 minutes early. I hope you guys will understand. It's just like I said, talking is like just getting the air to push out sentences and trying to focus on thinking while also focusing on the air. It's not allowing me to perform well. But
I
anyway.
think you're performing actually really well. On a number of occasions, you've performed the show under duress. I think you're a warrior. Don't worry about
Oh, well, God bless John. Rudiger says, "Is it gas? It's gas, isn't it?" No, it's not gas.
it.
I mean, if it were gas, you'd be hearing stuff in the background. Anyways,
Keep it in the background.
Kovlat, no, it's yeah. Kovlat says it sounds like it really hurts. No, it doesn't hurt. It's just I can't. I can breathe. I'm breathing. I'm getting all the oxygen that I need. It's just when I inhale, I try to get to the top of the breath, and then I can't get there. It's like it feels like I'm taking 90% of a breath. And then sometimes if I'm feeling particularly anxious, it could feel like 85 or 80%. And just that fact alone, it's particularly stressful and uncomfortable. But the fact of the matter is, aside from that, I don't feel much pain. Like, I don't feel any pain at all. I don't have any, like, cold symptoms or anything like that. It's just the shortness of breath. So from that, I can only deduce that it is anxiety. Yeah, like Gamwolfer says, maybe it's subconscious anxiety thing because of COVID. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it is subconscious. Because, like
That's quite a reasonable stab, you know. That sounds like a sensible idea. We can have effects that we don't, see the logic of, but they're having an effect.
yeah. And as like the aforementioned Peterson said in regards to the subconscious, and same thing with the aforementioned Jung, there are certain things outside our field of cognition that are controlling us, and sometimes we don't know what those things are. Those are the things that reside in the unconscious, and maybe that's what it is. It's just the fact, like everything that's going on, it's this Bud Light sickness, as I like to call it, 24/7 on the news, and it's sort of worked its way into my subconscious mind where I'm just feeling on edge about it persistently,
Mm.
especially because like I said, if I get it, then my dad will likely get it, and unfortunately, my dad is he's both he's older, and he also has the precondition of being immunocompromised and having diabetes. So if he gets it, he will unfortunately likely die. I'm just very
Oh, you got another super chat coming in.
Um. Oh yeah, Nick Nicholson. He's God. Nick, you're the man. I love you, man. He just says, "Just breathe, Max," and I'm doing my best here, dude. Um. Ink says, "Are you hunched over, Max? I might affect your breathing. Otherwise, you sound fine to me." Actually, no. I'm sitting up straight. I'm not like if I were hunched over, I'd be leaning into my mic like this.
That's
Um.
good.
Yeah, no, people say I should do ASMR. How about no? Um, Jacob Tucker says, "How's the air where you are? I'm in Western New York, and this time of year with the weather change, it sets off this sort of issue." That's the thing, dude. It's like, and it's just like, this is the
Mm.
worst possible time of the year for this sort of thing to happen. It's like, oh, do I have the thing or is it allergies? And I'm pretty susceptible to allergies. I'm allergic to I'm being facetious when I say this, but I'm allergic to everything outdoors. I'm allergic to trees. I'm allergic to grass. I'm allergic to ragweed, pollen. It's not good. And Necrotoxin says, "Get off that corset." How'd you know? Anyways, I only dress I dress my best for you guys. Anyways, let's just read the mailbag question and let's get out of here. So I'll just remind you guys, every week we try to save some time for the mailbag. And for the mailbag, we go into our email inbox and we take out emails that you guys have sent us. And those emails can be stories from your particular lives about being differently wired or somebody you know. It could be, advice that you like, or you have a question or something. We'd love to hear from you, whatever it is, just as long as it's, on the topic of being differently wired. And you can send all that good stuff to us at any time to this email address that you see on screen right now, which is maxderrat@yahoo.ca. That is maxderrat, all one word, at yahoo.ca. We just got one mailbag question for this week, and this one comes to us from Catherine with a K. And Catherine says, "I have a couple questions. My first question regards selective mutism. I have high functioning autism, but occasionally, after a meltdown/anxiety attack, I enter a state where I cannot verbalize anything. I can only communicate through text or hand gestures. Attempts to force myself to speak exacerbates my anxiety and feels. Oh my God, you're speaking my language right now,
Isn't isn't
Catherine.
that isn't that powerful?
I know."
Isn't that powerful?
Like, not just like right now, but just in general,
Yeah,
even though both
yeah.
things apply. Attempts to force myself to speak exacerbate my anxiety and feels painful emotionally. It has gotten so bad in a few instances where I can't even text, but can only communicate with gifts I text to my roommates or family. It seems to be an inhibition on communication that makes me feel safer. I was wondering if either of you have any experience with this type of reaction, specifically methods to prevent it or lessen the duration, as it can often be days before I can speak again. My second question regards the use of labels. Recently, my parents remarked with some aggravation at my desire to put myself and others into boxes. I like taking the various personality tests, such as the Enneagram test and the Myers Briggs personality test. I also like to try and sort people into various classes and titles based on this comic I really like. I'm not sure why I do this. I think it's a way for me to process the information presented by personality into manageable chunks with a single name. but I'm also aware that, taken to the extremes, this outlook could be damaging. Have either of you dealt with this kind of outlook? Do you know of what ways it can be beneficial or detrimental, and where do you draw the line? I apologize for the length, sort of a ward slash feeling vomit. Thank you for both for all you do, Catherine. Well, first of all, Catherine, thank you for sending that in, and it's not word vomit. Believe me, you should see some of the emails we get. This is like definitely one of the shorter ones. So John, do you?
It's also a very clear one, Max. I think you should handle the first part because it's so clearly something you have deep experience with. The
Yeah,
first question.
John, literally, you just read my mind. I was about to ask, and I do the first part, you do the second part. Okay,
I
so
agree.
so first part, yeah. See, you and I are just like you got this neural link.
That's
Anyways,
it.
so in regards to being able to communicate through text or hand gestures, this makes sense to me because you say you have high functioning autism. I totally understand that. When I feel particularly stressed or whenever I have a meltdown, what's happening is you have a whole bunch of different information going into your brain, a whole bunch of different sensory input. And because you have so many different electrical signals going to your brain can't process them all at once. So when you have all those different signals going into your brain, you can't put forward coherent sentences. And when you try to, it becomes particularly stressful. Like this happens all the time whenever I do something that is displeasurable to my family, that like they expect me to be logically consistent and coherent whenever I'm feeling particularly upset, and it's just like I have to tense up and try to force myself to speak logically, because if I don't, then they might be able to say, "Oh, well, you're being irrational, Max." And it's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just doing my best to communicate with you." And when you're doing it, when you're trying to communicate through gifts or hand gestures, what those things do, they're like compact forms of what you're trying to say. Like whenever you're in pain or something, and like let's say you're at the hospital and you're in a lot of pain, people aren't going to expect you to communicate in full sentences. They're going to be like, where does it hurt? Here. How much pain are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? 9. That's sort of what you're trying to do when you're trying to communicate to other people when you're in these heightened anxiety states. When you use a hand gesture, like if you give a thumbs up to somebody, that means you're okay, right? Maybe like you're just coming down from a meltdown, you give them the okay, you just need to be left alone or something. That's sort of the way that I interpret it. John, does that sound reasonable to you?
Sounds reasonable to me. It's not so unusual for people to be overcome, even people who are neurotypical, when the situation is particularly dramatic. If it's a terrifying situation or something very bad has happened, your rational piece is kind of missing. You're gone into system one and you're reacting, as Kahneman would say, you're reacting intuitively and it's still overwhelming and you can't do anything. You're overcome. But this can happen to anybody. It's particularly pernicious if you're differently wired and you are often misunderstood. So I'm thinking, Catherine, you might try to get ahead of the curve on this. Instead of waiting until you've reached that point, you might be using those forms of communication in a fun way more often. So it becomes more normal for you to nod or use emojis or text short things or something when you're not, like, teach people that you talk in short bursts or in gifs or whatever. Uh, that's one piece, like getting ahead of the curve if possible that way. Another is, like, Max, you know about this. If you're in an environment that's treacherous, you have to get out of it. If it's a work environment, it doesn't work, it's toxic, it's noisy, or whatever. You just have to, it's just too much. You can't deal with the racket of the house, the racket of the cars, the racket of the dogs, the racket of cash registers and babies screaming and so on. Just can't do it. So
Mm.
you have to, you can, if there are situations, Catherine, that you find yourself in that you can rearrange so you're not in them, that's another good way to sort of get ahead of that curve. Um, okay, that's all I had to say about the first question.
Okay, and the second one. Let me just remind myself of what she said. Um, in regards to using labels, well, look, labels it can be useful, I suppose, when you're just trying to um, coalesce like basic information about somebody. Like you might be able to say that I'm a nerdy person because I'm into video games or I'm into researching psychology and stuff like that. But that's not everything about me. If you want to use labels, it might benefit you to use a plethora of labels while also encouraging yourself and others that use labels to seek out a diversity of information about people or things, right? Um, it's not necessarily a problem as long as you approach it from that perspective, and as long as like if your parents are giving you trouble about this, maybe tell them that that's what you're doing with the labels, and you're not necessarily just putting people into boxes that they can't
Yeah, there's an
leave.
important point here that she's making. She recognizes the value or wonders about the value, and I believe there's a connection between why she needs the labels and what we're talking about, the illusion of understanding and the halo effect. You need some security, Catherine. You need some stability. Okay, I'm a bit of this, I'm a bit of this. Okay, I exhibit these characteristics. You exhibit these characteristics, so that's the label for those characteristics. But you don't have to live in the box of the label. Some parts of my personality are, I don't know, introverted. Okay, but not everything is introverted. Not every relationship is introverted exactly. You are a whole person, but the labels, you need the labels to give you some sort of a sense of navigation, which really like a sense of comfort and direction. And you're absolutely right to be aware of the outlook being damaging if you find yourself crawling into the box of some particular label and then living up to that label when it actually isn't really accurate. That's why I have clients with 10 different diagnoses.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that sometimes the human brain is just so complicated
Mm.
that it's impossible to pin down exactly what something is
And without any sense of labeling, a healer probably will have difficulty doing a treatment because you come in and say, "Oh, I find this and this is wrong and this is wrong. Oh, sounds like you have this condition. So maybe if we do this treatment, we'll help you with that condition. You
Mm,
tried it, didn't work. Okay, well, then maybe it's this other condition." So you kind of iteratively get at the problem. But first of all, you need some navigation. As a healer, somebody calls me up and says, I need a coach. I said, well, what's wrong? Oh, I can't get my life organized. I'm sad all the time. Or I have this, I that. Oh, okay, we can work on that. Now I know where we're headed. You know what
yeah. A doctor, I have a cold. Oh, time for a vasectomy. What?
I mean?
What do you?
Absolutely.
How did you come? How did you get that from me telling you I have a cold? Well, we can't have you breeding, can we? No.
Hmm.
Sorry. Anyway, just humor me as I humor myself.
Hey,
For
you
not
got
feeling
through
well.
this show pretty good, man.
I can't believe the 50 minutes have gone by. Guys, to the people that normally join me for the after show, please, I hope you'll understand if we don't have it tonight. I just need to go lie down. Hopefully, I'll feel a little bit better tomorrow. Like I said, it does go away in a couple days, or at least it did last time. So we'll see what happens. Before you guys go, I just want to ask: could you please, those who are still watching the show, please make sure you hit that like button. It really helps us out. It tells the YouTube algorithm that this content is worth watching. You know the drill. Yada yada yada. John, thank you as always for your support and keeping me afloat during the shows, not just this one, but everyone. And
Thank you, man.
I just want to remind you guys, like we did at the beginning of the show, if you want to talk to John, hold on. Let's actually, you know what? Just as a fun experiment, before you go, John, before we close out, let's just take a look at how many people have scheduled chats. Okay, a couple people have. That's good.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So
Athena, I hope you've scheduled a chat. I see that you wanted to chat with me. I'm dying to chat with
yeah, John's voice just went robotic there for a second, but he said he's dying to chat with you, Athena, in case you didn't get that. Yeah, so make sure you guys go to his website if you guys want to talk to him. He's available every Monday, apparently, at these available times. There you go. That's it for today's show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hanging in there with us, and thank you so much for being supportive of me and John and the show. And until we do this again next Wednesday, hopefully when I have my lungs back, I just want to remind you